Hey everyone, this video is going to be a compilation of successful executions of the Craw Pogo skip, which was first discovered by FallenTurtle. This video will feature 3 different methods of execution, 2 found by myself, and 1 from beemo and ScrewMyShoe. You can find timestamps of all attempts in the description below. Unfortunately, the game audio didn't end up getting recorded, so sorry that the sound is gone. You can, of course, just study the clips themselves, but I will be providing some commentary about the reasons I do certain things in the clips, along with some explanations of edge cases. So what's been playing so far is the Dashback Craw Pogo, where you lure the second craw by sprinting at it, then dashing back. You'll note that I upslash the first craw, which helps the setup a bit by giving you a little bit of extra height when you pogo it. And then anecdotally, I found that it also increases the chance that it dives early, which in this case you want. The craws have certain activation hitboxes so that when you're under them, then they'll dive, but only when they feel like it. But when you're above them, they won't dive and will instead like very slowly float towards you. And so you'll notice that's why I try to sort of hang on the edge of their hitbox before doing a, from a float, doing a dash pogo at them so that you can get the pogo from the largest distance away from them that you can. If you don't include that dash, when you go in for the pogo, what's likely to happen is that you really won't gain all that much height. So keeping a bigger horizontal distance and doing that dash pogo is what lets you sort of gain more height. I've included some examples here where I fail the initial trick, but then am still able to back it up. And you'll see a lot of that relies on staying further back and then doing those dash pogos. Now we're going to move on to the Garama Craw Pogo, which you lure the second craw by doing a challenge, which is also known as a Garama. This method is significantly faster than dashback, but is hard to pull off and more prone to being put in like a worse position if either of the craws are uncooperative. But you'll see that in general, this is a lot faster because you don't have to float if you get good positioning. Now, the worst case scenario with Garama Craw Pogo is if you do a down attack right in between the 2 birds, that being the second one, which should be a pogo, in which case you'll have to bait one of them to the left to try to save it. And there will be an example of that coming up, I think. But you use sort of a similar technique no matter what to try to save these. If you can split the birds apart, then you can pretty much always save it by just alternating which bird you hit and making sure you're at max range of the bird you're going to hit before doing a dash pogo. You'll see in this one that I damage tank by accident instead of getting the upslash off, but it still works out okay. So there's a little bit of stuff that can go wrong and you can still sort of save it. But you want to get comfortable with being able to dash pogo in between the 2 of them to be able to get those saves in. Like this one where I don't get that upslash, and so I don't have the initial height that I would otherwise want to be able to do it. Yeah, this is one I think where, yeah, you can see I end up trying to pogo right in between them. And so I basically have to do a few more pogos in between, and I end up being able to save it because of that. So you want to be careful about that if you're doing the Garama version. Whereas the dashback version doesn't usually have that problem. Instead, what you might end up in is a situation where you just have to do a few extra pogos. But you'll always want to essentially hang back as far left as you can before going in for the dash pogo and then moving left again. And then you repeat that until you get the necessary height so that you can reach the ledge. You can see I just totally fall here. But I end up finding that the right craw is low enough that I can just pogo it immediately instead of having to wait for a dive. And then I'm able to just get the rest of the pogos off from the left craw. So there's quite a few ways to be able to do backups. And so optimally, you shouldn't have to do that many pogos for this trick. But I think the thing people were most worried about when this trick was first introduced was if you weren't able to get the pogos, are you just completely out of luck? Is it going to be a reset? And the answer is no. You can pretty much just back it up, and you lose a few seconds, but the run doesn't end. The other thing you can do is if you get in a really bad spot, which I do here, is just reload the room from the right. And so when you do that, you essentially do like the dashback Craw Pogo, but in reverse, to lure the left one last. And then you basically just do these pogos left and right. That first example is me failing the dashback version and then having to back it up by reloading. This is me failing the Garama version and backing it up. Yeah, once they're both to the left here, I realize that there's no way for me to save that. If they're split, it's easy, but if they're both on one side, it becomes a little difficult. So I just reload the room. I wait for one of them to dive. Like, this is a really slow version of the trick, but I wanted to include it just to show that you can still save it. And then this was recorded by Shoe. I think Shoe and beemo both sort of came up with this method. I'm calling it right side Craw Pogo, but essentially it involves delaying the spawn of the second craw until after the first one dives. This version is the most straightforward of the bunch in terms of like inputs, so you may find it to be the most comfortable, but it benefits more from a late first craw attack rather than the other two versions, which benefit more from the early craw attack. So you lose a bit of time there. It can also be a little bit trickier to get back because you end up underneath that platform on the right, which can get you stuck sometimes. But I mean, all three methods have their merits. I encourage people to sort of try them out, see which feels the best. I'm guessing in like a year, there'll be some consensus about what the best actually is, or we'll have routed the trick into obsolescence. I'll put what I said in as text in the description if you'd want some easier reference, and feel free to ask questions in the comments if you get stuck. Thanks for watching.